Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 6th of December, comes to you from London. And this morning we're using the Bloomberg feed. Updata runs, of course, on multiple data services, so we're using Bloomberg for today. These are my long-term charts, the weekly and the 1% point and figure log, my medium term, the daily cloud, and the 0.5% log, and the 60-minute and the 0.1% log. So this is my long-term, medium-term, short-term view. This multi-view allows us to quickly go through and look at everything. We start by looking at some currencies, then we'll look at some US stock markets, indices, some futures, commodities, and then some stocks. So we start with the dollar index again, starting to sell off. We're below the cloud. Had a sell-off day yesterday, and we now do have these downside targets kicking in: 98.78, 98.68. So we're coming back to test this 100 level. So two downside targets to much the same area. That's a bit of a cluster. So it does look like the dollar might just see a little bit of a sell-off for the next couple of weeks. If we look at the euro, we see this really big rise yesterday. There was the big fall on the Italy news, and then this big rise afterwards. And this is quite unusual. Really does suggest probably some central bank buying actually, because bad news and then a real rally on that. So of course it's there. It's technical. We can't ignore it. But we have these downside targets and a new upside target to 109. So really quite interesting. Downside target still hanging over us. It doesn't change much on the medium and longer term charts. So keeping an eye on that. We look at the yen. Dollar yen is a good proxy for the just seeing the real dollar move, and we are still just bullish here. So whilst we have downside targets on the index on this chart, we're not yet bearish. We look at sterling. Sterling really still on this recovery, 128 at the moment almost. So that's quite significant. Really just moving above the cloud on the daily, not yet on the lagging line. So too early to say it's a medium-term recovery, but in the short term, and no real clear upside targets. 128.52. That is less than 1% upside. So still quite tricky to say. If we look at sterling against the euro, we see that is through the cloud. So sterling is definitely improving there. Taking a look at US stock market, S&P 500 back above 2200 last night, so that's good for the market. And we see here upside targets. 2263 now in train. This downside target didn't get activated actually, but it is there, 2146. But it does look like we're going to hold this 2200 level now. Still staying above the cloud on the short term. Bit of a consolidation. Maybe we'll see a run again this week. Nasdaq hasn't been as good, with tech looking a bit worrying, but the last couple of days is recovering now and finding support on the lagging line on the daily cloud. So that is encouraging for now. And if we look at the Dow, Dow is still going on to make new highs. The Dow 30 bellwether stocks looking great, and the Russell is not falling off here. Found support short term on the cloud, so the broader US stock market looking pretty good as well. The futures down very slightly this morning. If you look at the Nasdaq E-mini, it is below the cloud, but just wandering through on the price. We do have an upside target 48.13. If you're trading the E-mini, take a look at the 1-minute charts. Keep an eye on the point and figure targets there. FTSE did have a mixed day yesterday. It was up strongly at one point and then down, and we are just still below the cloud with these downside targets, just wandering below on the daily lagging line. So that's a little bit worrying. Not looking as strong as the US market. So if the US market, of course, goes up any further, then that probably will drag FTSE higher. And we are just seeing here on the FTSE 250 much the same picture, a cluster of downside targets there. The DAX, just really again, it's just moved back above the cloud, so that's bullish. But for the DAX at the moment, the real issue is just getting through this 10,800 level. Really key there, and we've just got to get through that range. Which has now been going on for quite a few months. So if the DAX breaks that, then that would be good. If we look at the Nikkei, looking strong still, just above the clouds. So Asian markets looking a little bit better, up 0.5% last night. Shanghai has just gone below on the daily cloud with a downside target. So China just looking a little weaker, and Hang Seng did recover overnight, having had a bad night the day before. But these downside targets still hanging over us, and it does look like we're wandering out of the cloud here, so that would turn bearish. The Indian market just recovering after quite a lot of turmoil over currencies recall, but interesting that we are just starting to see that market recovering, but not strongly. And the Australian market getting through on the daily cloud, trying on the weekly, and just holding on the daily on the 60 minutes. So it's looking okay. Uh, if we look at commodities, we start with Brent crude. This is the jump on the OPEC move. It's holding this jump. That's the key thing. And we are now just wandering through on the weekly. We want to see 3 weeks on this cloud, but it does look like that's happening. And we are here with a short term. We've got upside targets 57, 62, and 55. So that those targets are all activated. The downside target not activated. Crude looking bullish again. So quite interesting. And we're starting to make that transition. So Brent is about to make that transition, and WTI is even more clearly made that transition. So that's really interesting. So we're seeing upside targets here, 58. Yeah, that's 14% upside, and the same on the long-term chart. So crude heading into the strong quarter looks like we'll see some quite strong rises in crude. Heating oil, much the same picture. Jumped on the OPEC announcement. Looks like it's making a transition as well. Natural gas, US nat gas, clearly made this transition now through the cloud long term 359.50, really strong move here. Many saying that's weather related, but the interesting thing is we're above the cloud. We're set up to make these big moves now. 406, 401. We've got big targets here, 11 and 12% upside. So it looks like nat gas is going to go and have quite a strong time the next few weeks. If you take a look at some of the other softs, coffee below the cloud looking quite bearish again, having had a strong run in October, a big sell-off now. If we take a look at gold, gold is still struggling to make this transition in the short term. We do have an upside target of 1204, that's about 2.8%. But interestingly, pulling back on the cloud, will we find support here? That's the big question. Gold does tend to go up quite strongly in the new year, so we shouldn't be surprised to see gold having a re-rating around that time. Not long to go now. If we take a look at wheat, that's just also showing some downside as well. And silver, having just looked at gold, precious metals, silver is through with lots of upside targets, tends to lead gold. So that's quite a bullish sign that we are just seeing some short-term upside targets there. And copper has been a big story in the last couple of months. Through on the cloud now convincingly. This is a long-term uptrend, up on the daily and on the 60-minute. A bit of an absence of short-term targets, but 42% upside on this long-term target, so that's really amazing. Taking a look at the US interest rate yield, just selling off a bit here. We got to the mid and high 240s, now just coming off, but not activated any downside targets. But the long-term transition is definitely still there. And we see last night's price action on some of the tech stocks. Apple not really through the cloud yet. Google is just still struggling. Upside target here of about 0.6%, possibly finding support on the cloud. Amazon much the same, just still a bit below the cloud, but we do have a new upside target of 5% activated on the short-term chart. And if we look at Facebook, that's just teetering off the bottom here, having found support around this 115 level. Showing up a bit more clearly in the daily chart. About 1.2% upside, and a lot of medium and long-term upside targets. And Microsoft again, just getting back into the cloud, still bullish on the medium and long-term charts. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.